Bristol. We are sitting with you. I always say Bristol. Mr. Bristol. We are here on a musical journey that started your career. If I wouldn't say the institution had lived that for the interview itself, but I remember when you used to come in the music room, when I did fiddling with the piano, you say, play this song. You remember what that song was?
It was Imagine.
It was Imagine.
And the significance of Imagine is that John Lennon launched that song Imagine in 1971. And that in 1971 I started a life, a career upon which today I can look back and say, well done.
Let's get that song and then we'll get that career going. John Lennon, Imagine.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if we try.
Sing the song, boy.
No hell below us. Above us, only sky.
I got pitching a few notes.
Imagine all the people living for the day. Imagine there's no countries.
That's the song.
It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for.
Not at all.
And no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one.
You could bet.
I hope someday you will join us, and the world will leave us one. In no possession. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger.
Not at all.
A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people just sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you will join us, and the world will leave us one. And someday you will join us, and the world will leave us.
You gotta sing the chorus again. Sing the chorus again.
You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one.
That's the song, Mr. Bristol.
I hope someday you will join us, and the world will leave us one.
One more time.
And the world will leave us one.
This it's another Explore Corner, right?
It's another Explore Corner, of course. I want to repeat that because we've been wanting this Explo for about 3 years now.
Yes, we've been asking for it. We got a little bit of it about a year or 2 years ago, but I think we're going to get it in its entirety.
Of course.
Yes.
So you are sitting with the master, we call him the Mayor of Leicester.
Of course, that's his title.
Of course.
The Mayor of Leicester. And someone who has molded us and shaped us into who we are today.
And what we are today.
Yes.
Yeah.
We know that we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Hillsborough Secondary Junior Sec. He'd been there since the days of Junior Sec. Mr. Cosmos Bristol.
Take it away.
Good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
But you're the mayor of Leicester, right?
Oh my goodness, this is a lot of flattery, ma'am.
No, it's the truth. So, Mr. Bristol, tell us about yourself.
I am Cosmos Bristol, of course, and today I'm retired. I'm married. I have 2 kids. Well, 2 children, I better say. I have no kids. I had a long career at educating boys and girls at Hillsborough Junior Secondary, and I've been involved in community life for all of my life, really, from quadrille dance to drama to singing everywhere. Daylight come and we want to go home. Hosanna bands to past play, everything I was involved. And that since I retired, I found a new mission. I fish, and anywhere they have Saraka, Leicester, call me to do the cuckoo.
Yeah?
Yes.
So you're a great cook as well?
Well, I wouldn't call myself great, but I could challenge anybody who want to cook.
You're cooking better than Basie?
I don't know anything about Basie. I know about my cooking. My cooking is up there somewhere, you know, by the clouds. So Basie has to come good if he wants to cook.
I believe you taught him to cook that as well.
Well, we, at school we practically learned everything. Because anytime I found time, I went into the kitchen and see what they were up to. In my career, I started as industrial arts teacher, but I ended up teaching practically everything like they do at the primary school. Because at one time I taught geography, West Indian history, mathematics, English language, the whole works, you know. There was a time in my career when I did some evening classes, and I took children up to school leaving standard. At the time we were still Junior Sec, and that Junior Sec wasn't doing GC, was on the thing that time. So after my students were successful at school leaving, I also did a GC program for English. I only took English. I think somebody else did either geography or biology, but somebody else did something else.
To date, I would say you and Mr. George, you all are the best 2 English teachers that passed through Carriacou.
Goodness. Maybe there are a lot of people better than us.
But trust me, you all agree.
Well, it was that, well, for me, I found a different approach to the teaching of English, because many of the basic things that need to be taught early in the program is not. For one example is that questioning. Teachers don't really teach questioning, and I found that a huge challenge when every task has some questions coming after it. But generally speaking, teachers never taught students what to say when a question term says what it says.
Right.
For example, when the question says what do you give? When this question says why, what do you write? And that many persons, when I ask what the questions, when the question says why, what do you write? They say you write an answer. It is not that. When the question says why, you have to give a reason. For what question, you make a statement. And that is so far-fetched from writing anything. And that's one of the challenges students have when they at CXC they are candidates, then they write things that are not even asked.
That's true.
And I can attest to it.
I remember all that from school days. Hence the reason now I have to be very particular in my pronunciation, because I know you're going to stop me, right?
No, I won't stop you. You're too adult.
No, you have to do it, you know.
It means that you have developed a bad habit. That
unconsciously, sometimes you do it. All right, so Bristol, tell us about Junior Sec and your career. How you got involved?
Honestly, I began as a teacher in Grenada, at Palmer School in Grenada. But I only spent a few days before Mr. then Chief Education Officer Nicholas Brownlee called me and gave me an appointment letter which said that I was assigned to Hillsborough Junior Secondary School, Carriacou.
So then you as a kayak and they send you home?
Yes, well, I think it is well put that way, yeah.
Okay.
So when I came to Carriacou, I went all the way to Petite to find Mr. Samuel Fleury. He was the assigned principal. And when I met him, he said to me, Bristol, you are my first member of staff.
Wow.
Yes, and so
what year was that?
That was 1971. It was...
I didn't born yet.
Yeah, right. So from there, other teachers were assigned. Some teachers came from the primary school, as you would understand, because the students who were sent to Hillsborough Junior Secondary were from 12 years and older. Every boy and girl at the primary level in the 5 primary schools here was sent to Hillsborough Junior Secondary.
Oh, so it was Hillsborough Junior Secondary, yes. Not just Junior Secondary?
No, Hillsborough Junior Secondary School, that was the title.
Okay.
Okay. That first enrollment was 621 boys and girls. And when we had a sufficient number as staff, we had 28 teachers.
Okay.
So you could better appreciate the challenge of one, class arrangement, subject deployment, subject, timetabling, subject, teacher deployment and all of that, because Mr. Fleury had to determine who was strong where. There were some people who came with strengths in one area, but didn't, they weren't willing to do those areas, and a whole lot of trouble. But of course, as life would have it, he had to cause people to understand that we have a situation at hand that must be handled and so on. So we had, away from the primary school, where they didn't have subjects like Spanish, biology, and so on, we then had those as part of our curriculum.
Okay. Typing
was one of the things that was new, and there were brand new typewriters. The children were all excited. There was a new kitchen and home ec center, it was called. There was a sewing department. There was arts and crafts, and of course there was music. There was a lot of instruments. There was a piano there, guitar, drums, a lot of excitement.
So who thought typing? Was it Teacher Brenda?
No, it was a lady called Mrs. Witcher, a little lady from the United States. I should say too that we had some Peace Corps volunteers in people like Mrs. Witcher. We had Mr. Kepat, Mr. Malinowski, and Mr. and Mrs. Malinowski. We had Mr. Pauline, and over time we had some other Peace Corps volunteers. One of the harshest reality there was when it comes to class operation and staff arrangement and so came when maybe 50–60% of the staff was torn over every, say, 2 years, because many of the teachers were maybe they were beaten by the pressure, or perhaps, I don't know, but many of them traveled. They went away. They were looking for greener pastures, as they said.
So how much you used to work for them? Your salary?
Well, I cannot tell you everything in detail, but I can tell you my first paycheck was $160. But you laugh. That was more than some other teachers were making, you know.
Oh, really?
Yes, there were other teachers making less than that. And of course, well, salary increases brought us to 2 something, 3 something, 4 something, and of course, as you qualify yourself, you went up the ladder. Okay. My biggest qualification came when I went to Teachers College in St. Lucia, 77, 78. So after I came from St. Lucia, I got an increase based on qualification from Teachers College in St. Lucia. Okay. Well, you had a whole lot of changes. I should tell you, Mr. Fleury was a brilliant leader and principal. I mean, he was on top of everything, from students' conduct, everything. One could understand the challenges, or some of them, that because you had all these boys and girls coming from every corner of Carriacou, there was conflict. And that at the assembly, Mr. Flavor would say, nobody should fight in his school. So any fight had to happen after school. But even then, if he only knew about it, he's going to get on top of it. And his thing was, he's going to flog both of you, because there shouldn't be a fight. Always try to resolve your differences. Don't fight over it. So he's going to flog both of you, and then he's going to listen to who is right and who is wrong.
Really? So the flog came first? The
flog came first. Because you fight, or you couldn't. The only time a person would escape that was if somebody just beat up on somebody.
Right.
But anything they say, both of you fight? No.
So who are some of the principals during Hillsborough Junior Secondary?
So let me show you this, that in 1977, in December 1997, Mr. Fleury died suddenly.
In 77?
Yes,
okay.
1977. As a matter of fact, and perhaps I shouldn't say that, that day I went to his home to assist him with the building of an oven. One of those outside oven, the brick oven. We built an oven that day. And that night he died. I don't know.
Did you see any signs that he was not doing well?
No, I didn't see anything. The only thing that I look back on and thought, oh my wife, his wife, after we were done, maybe about 3:30, maybe 4-ish, his wife served us juice and cake, and that she insisted Bristol spend the night with us, please. And I said it was Christmas time. I'm not staying with the parents for anything. I'm going to my place there. Yes, so I didn't stay. But
do you regret not staying?
Not regret, but I ponder his dying, because I don't know, maybe, just maybe, if I was there, something, I may have offered a different suggestion when he didn't feel well. But he fell sick, he was taken to the hospital, and before daylight he was dead.
May he so rest in peace. Yeah. So what?
After he died, when January came, Mr. Kojo, Sidney Kojo, took the reins of principal, and of course, well, there was the boys and girls to take care of, and the staff, but Mr. Kojo was an entertainer, really. I mean, when it came to after work business, he had a lot of records from, in those days, the LP and 45 records, and he had a record player back then.
Okay.
And so he played a lot of lovely music after school.
Right.
So many teachers weren't, anxious to leave, and many times you would sit back and plan for tomorrow and so on, while he played all this lovely music, because we didn't have that at home.
Right, to relax your mind, right, after had this work. I like that.
Yes, so he was. I mean, he was not the same like Mr. Fleury. Mr. Fleury was on top of the students, perhaps Mr. Kojo was on top of the teachers. I mean, everybody was motivating and you know, driving for excellence and so. But there was a difference right there.
Okay.
So that after the revolution in '79, shortly after the revolution, Mr. Kojo went to Dover. Well, he should have gone to Dover, I should say. And Mr. Compton assumed the responsibility. But when once Mr. Compton...
Mr. Compton served for a very long time.
Yeah.
79 to...
No, not 79. I said after 79.
Okay.
So he would have come in 80 or 81. So
okay.
I can't tell you exactly what year now. But when he came, he was determined to do something about the junior secondary program. In fact, he set his mind on making the school another secondary school. And that we set the programs, we plucked the path. By 1985, we were full-fledged secondary. But it didn't start, you know, just like that. We phased out the junior secondary. So for a few years previously, we would have just phased out from one, phased out from two along the way, so that by '85 we had a full-fledged Hillsborough Secondary School. And of course, by then you would understand the competition was great, because you had Bishop's College there who thought they were the best thing to happen to us.
Still.
Well, yes. They should really. Yeah. But in many fields, Bishop's College had second place, I must say. And that when it came to sports, we gave them a run for their money for 13 years, let's say, and continue.
You remember that call during sports time? I want to hear the call. Hillsborough Secondary, Bishop's College. Give me just like you used to do during sports time. I was just about to say in the background, Hillsborough Secondary, Bishop's College. No, he can't do my voice. Give it to me, Mr. Bristol.
That's his.
Yes, that's his.
No, I loved it when Union Island came over.
Yes.
Union Island Secondary.
Yes.
Hillsborough Secondary.
Yes.
Bishop's College.
Yes.
It is Bishop's College Secondary as they come towards the village. Bishop's College wins it away from Hillsborough Secondary. Bishop's College.
I love it.
What you guys couldn't accept, it was the Bishop's College.
Why you ring the Bishop's College, but you're from Hillsborough Secondary? Yes.
When you are an announcer, when you're on the mic, it's a different story.
You have to be
you don't have to look like you're supporting them. You have to look like you're supporting the other side.
That's true. That is so true. I remember the days of you on this gate.
So it was a lot of fun.
It was very much.
Yes. Okay. And of course, the competition was key, and the success story is there to prove.
The golden days.
The golden days.
So tell us about the transfer from Junior Sec now to Hillsborough Secondary.
Well,
what changed?
The students were then writing CXC exams, and away from what they did before school living. I should have said that at the junior secondary level, they wrote school living exam. That was the top exam.
So not GC?
No, not yet. And that should they pass the school living exam at junior secondary, they could get a seat at Bishop's College.
Okay.
But many of them didn't, because Bishop's College wouldn't have a seat for them, because Bishop's College was taking in all the common entrance winners from the primary schools. So by the time it came to the school, even batch, Bishop's College would probably take maybe 10 or so.
So those were
and
like
that you had
15?
50 or so people writing school even and being successful. So you see the trouble many persons saw. If parents couldn't send them to a school in Grenada, the nightmare was to find a job or travel if they could, or be on the block, as some did. So those were some of the worry things about what we faced. But when we went full-fledged secondary, it took charge of that problem, dealt with it. Because then all the students of Carriacou and Petite had a secondary experience. And that at secondary school, we moved from just maybe 14 or 15 subjects to quickly 18 or 20. And right now they're doing up to 27 subjects. Up to 27 subject areas are offered. I mean, you don't have to do 27, but of course it's offered, right?
Yes.
Many of them are tripled or twinned, so as to afford boys and girls to pick their choices. And that, well, we have back then we had industrial arts, you have the sciences, you have the arts, and you also had the vocational. It was typing. During our secondary years, there came the time when Grenlec offered to sponsor something at our school, and we opted to ask for setting up of a classroom, because just about that time CXC introduced a program or a subject area, electronic document preparation, EDPM management, right? So we picked that as one of the sponsored areas. Grenlec gave us the raw material and we did the labor. As a matter of fact, Neil, I don't know if Neil was there, but we tiled the room, right? We did the room and we tiled it. We spent hours tiling the room. I used my construction class.
Yes, and I was about to ask you, was it teaching children?
Yes, with the boys and girls.
Basically, was you part of that?
I graduated already, but I was in the workshop.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we did some of the work, but of course Grenlec gave us all of the machines, all of the computers, so that. But your teacher Brenda was the person in typing, and now she went over to this new program offered by CXC, and I must tell you, it has been Hillsborough Secondary most successful product. For the 13 years that she remained there, she had 100% pass every single year. And that maybe 80-something% of those children got a 1.
Wow.
At CX.
Wow.
At EDPM.
Wow. So Brenda was great. Yeah. I remember in school when I was in typing class, I didn't like typing, and I remember teacher Brenda saying, learn to type. One day you might have to type for your living. Okay. I'm like, teacher Brenda, I would never do that. If I have to type for my living, I'd rather. And you know, I type for my living. Okay. There we go. So when I started working, I had to learn to type all over again when I could have done it in school.
You have those strategies.
Exactly. Tell me, what was one of your highest points in school as a teacher?
My hardest, most difficult, most challenging period as a teacher came in 1997 when Universal Secondary Education Program was introduced. That period leading up to a period I mentioned just now was my most challenging. Because it was a period when I saw the faces in boys and girls who didn't seem to going to succeed. I mean, and according to the teachers, these children can't do much. And that we were determined to see them do much, I better say. So it was my most difficult, but I must say it was my most rewarding. Because I served as principal towards the end of that period. Not only that, I should tell you that in '97, we registered 120 boys and girls from the primary school. 5 years on, in 2002, when they graduated, we had 90 at graduation. So we lost 30 along the way. Let us say they were slow and they were late in developing, so that let's say that they stayed down. Yeah. Let's say that, okay? Leave it there a little bit. The 90 boys and girls graduating was the largest class graduating at secondary school. That was a record. Every boy and girl got a study pass at CXC that year. So that is the part of the that's the hard part. Of course. Right? Going back to 1998, we enrolled 107 boys and girls. But by 2003, when they should graduate, we only graduated 64. Wow. So we lost again. And you can understand that the challenge with that program, that a lot of these kids, they drop out of school because they were illy prepared for the secondary program. I mean, I'm sorry to think that, but I must say that the people in authority then, they didn't understand, to my mind, what was happening on the ground. Secondary education is a gallop. It is not a place for, slow learners, late developers. It's really, you have to be ready for secondary school. And I beg the authority then, please let the children remain at the primary level until they are ready. Even if 2 years later they are ready, they can come. You see, the truth about development and about education, which many, perhaps even parents, don't understand. If there is not a level at which we can move to the next level, we are doomed. Let us be a little more practical. Yes. If you cannot subtract, you cannot add, you get to work in the gas station as a cashier. So when a person comes with $100 and they ask for $10 gas, how much change you give? Exactly. That's the context of what I'm saying.
I'm not sure if it was that period, but I heard of times when children came from the primary level to secondary and they couldn't write.
That's true. As a consequence, we had a whole remedial program. And that's where Miss Ostick belonged. Not only that, when perhaps I should be developing boys and girls at the CXC English level, I was thrown into remedial. I mean, I could tell you a very, very, very interesting story, but I cannot.
Okay. All right, you'll tell me after.
Because, I mean, there's been some success, I must say.
Nice.
Then there were persons who just couldn't write.
I know.
They couldn't read. And go and practically help them to write.
I think you're divided. When they came from primary school, I think I remember you're putting some of them into classes and teaching them to read and write.
That was where I belong. That was where I went.
Really?
Really. And that when if I showed them something today and tomorrow they went on top of it, I went over, they were mad with me for that. Because you saw yesterday we did that. But you have not mastered it. Right. We cannot move on until you master it. And that is the context of my tutoring, You have to master it. There's no other way. You have to master it.
Of course.
And it was the similar thing I did at the workshop.
Yes.
If measurement, if you cannot measure, you have to measure. There's not a way.
Right.
If you take 100 times over, you have to master that art.
Yes.
I retired in 2012, and that I stayed on primarily to realize the 40th anniversary of secondary. So after we had a wonderful celebration at the 40th.
That's when they dressed,
yes.
the adults dressed
in the uniform.
I was there. I must come in now.
There, right?
The 40th, I was there. I went back to originally how I used to go to school with my briefcase. And
tie, your white shirt.
Of course.
And you sang for the 50th anniversary with your uniform, but different tie, eh?
Happy 50th anniversary to you, Hillsborough Secondary School. From me, Neil Basin Matheson, class of 1993, we say, we have been loving you so long, HSS, my dear. And it's hard to see that love just disappear. No, you would believe that's the principal tie I was using.
Oh, okay.
He said
so Chief
no,
gave you a tie?
Yeah, he says, no, you're not going to use a student tie anymore. You're part of the faculty. No, you're not a student anymore.
Okay.
He's our new music teacher.
So in 71, I would have been 40 years there. In October of 71. And that when I was crazy to leave now, ministry wouldn't let me go. Nobody.
See why you're the mayor.
I called them, I said, listen, I'm going home tonight and I won't come back tomorrow. The lady said, Mr. Bristol, please report to the paper. So I stayed on until 2012, right? And that so since my retirement, I'm happy to support. I've been at the school from retirement until COVID came. Every year I take a class after school trying to help them with the CX English.
Okay, so you still continue to educate?
Yes.
Wow.
And that with COVID, couldn't go to Hillsborough. I even tried it at Leicester. We started, we didn't get far because all these restrictions, and so the school closed down and everything, so I didn't manage much. But I think I would have given a lot of basics that the boys and girls who came could build on.
Nice.
So, and I'm prepared to assist anybody anytime.
Thank you for this interview, Mr. Bristol, and on behalf of all the students who passed through Junior Sec and Hillsborough Secondary School, I really want to say a special thank you for everything that you have done in molding and shaping us to who we are today. Not often do people say thank you, but from the bottom of our hearts, we want to say thank you, and you're really appreciated.
I must accept your thank you, but I must say to you, madam, I was paid for it.
That's okay, but some people, the money,
well, for me, you see, I believe that anything that I can do for the other people, I should do it. I mean, that's my conviction.
God bless you.
So whether they recognize it as good or bad, sad or otherwise, you know, it doesn't matter, really.
Thank you.
But
thank you.
I was happy.
Thank you.
You know, the one thing that I was really happy about all those years, the fact that people like all my students, including Macy, they were all respectable students.
Nice.
I
feel great.
That kept me in the
Because
thing.
I feel like somebody.
I never had disciplinary, I mean the kind of disciplinary problem that most other people had.
Yes.
I never had to send children to the principal.
Yeah.
I never put a kid outside of my class.
Yeah.
Did you teach Nilon in school?
Which?
Nilon. I want to know if you taught parents and then teach the children.
I taught parents, I taught children, I taught grandchildren, I taught
Great-grand.
Easily. Easily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I taught 41 years.
Right.
So
Do the maths.
That's true, eh?
yes.
That's true. Thank you. Bessie.
And that, I mean, for me as well, in the earlier you asked me, you know, if you ask me about regrets, I think I have just one.
Waiting?
Oh, you want me to tell you?
Yes.
Okay. I do not have enough children.
You've got all this among the children and then you come and have 2 Mr. Bristol, 1, 2.
The truth is that in my family, we were 13. 1, 3. I kept the faith.
Okay.
I have 1, 2.
I like that. I like that.
Oh, you got it. You got it now.
We end there.